r/malicious compliance cousin stole my wife, so I released the secret footage. The champagne glass shattered against the hardwood floor, crystal fragments catching the light from our dining room chandelier like tiny diamonds. But I wasn't looking at the mess, I was staring at my cousin Jake's smug face as he wrapped his arm around my wife's waist. "Mark, buddy, I hope there's no hard feelings," Jake said, that cocky grin spreading wider across his face. Sarah and I, well, we just couldn't fight it anymore. Real love finds a way, you know. The entire family had gone silent. Mom's fork hung suspended halfway to her mouth, loaded with Thanksgiving stuffing. Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. My sister Emma shot me a look that screamed, "Please don't make a scene." But it was Aunt Linda, Jake's own mother, who broke the silence. "Oh honey, this is wonderful news." She actually clapped her hands together like Jake had just announced a promotion instead of destroying my marriage. "I always thought you two made such a beautiful couple." Sarah had the decency to look down at her shoes, but Jake was eating this up. "Thanks, Mom." "And Mark." He turned those dead eyes on me, the same eyes I'd looked into when we were kids building fort in Grandpa's backyard. "I hope you can be happy for us. I mean, you should probably thank me." Sarah told me things weren't exactly passionate between you two anymore. I showed her what real love looks like. That's when I felt something snap inside my chest. Not break, snap. Like a rubber band pulled too tight. "When did this start?" I asked quietly. Sarah finally looked up. "Mark, please. Let's not do this here." "When?" My voice cut through her protests. Jake squeezed her tighter. "Does it matter? We're moving in together next week. Already found a place downtown. Real nice view of the river. With my money, I thought but didn't say. Because I knew exactly how they were affording a downtown apartment. I'd been watching my business accounts drain for months, little transfers I'd convinced myself were Sarah handling household expenses. "Jake's been such a good friend," Dad said, completely oblivious to the knife twisting in my gut. "Taking care of Sarah while you've been working so much. All those late nights at the studio." I almost laughed. Late nights at the studio. Right. The same studio where I'd been installing a comprehensive security system over the past year, upgrading my home setup to match. Cameras I placed everywhere to protect my expensive equipment after that break-in scare last spring. Cameras that had been recording everything. You know what? I stood up slowly, my napkin falling to the floor beside the broken glass. "You're absolutely right, Jake. I should thank you." His grin faltered slightly. He wasn't expecting that. "In fact," I continued, reaching for my phone, "I think we should celebrate properly. Your birthday party next weekend would be perfect. The whole family will be there, right? Mark." Sarah's voice held a warning. "What do you say, Jake? We'll make it a real celebration. I'll even put together one of my famous video presentations. You know how much the family loves those." Jake's face went through several expressions before settling back into that confident smirk. "Sure, cousin. Sounds great. Looking forward to it." As he said it, I was already scrolling through months of footage timestamps in my head. This was going to be quite the presentation indeed. The next morning, Sarah was gone before I woke up. Her coffee mug sat in the sink, lipstick stain on the rim like a goodbye kiss I'd never get. A note on the kitchen counter in her careful handwriting, * gone to my sisters for a few days. "We need space to figure this out, *. Figure this out. Like there was some magical solution where she got to keep both her husband and her lover. I made my own coffee and headed to my home office, stepping carefully around the guest house where Jake had been living for the past 8 months. Getting back on his feet, we'd called it when he showed up after his divorce, looking broken and desperate. Sarah had insisted we help family. The irony wasn't lost on me. My computer hummed to life, and I opened the security software. Months of footage stretched before me in neat little folders, organized by date and camera location. I'd installed the system professionally, motion activated, night vision, the works. What started as protection for my equipment had become documentation of my life falling apart in high definition. I clicked on a random file from 3 weeks ago. Kitchen camera, 2:47 p.m. There was Sarah, making lunch. Normal, domestic, innocent. Then Jake wandered in wearing just boxer shorts and one of my Harvard t-shirts. He pressed himself against her back while she stood at the counter, his hands sliding around her waist. She melted into him like butter on warm toast. My phone buzzed. Text from Emma, *, "Are you okay? Last night was intense, *. I typed back, *, "Fine. Looking forward to Jake's party, *. Mom wants to know if you need anything. She's worried about you, *. Of course she was worried about me. Not about the fact that Jake had blown up my marriage at Thanksgiving dinner like some kind of relationship terrorist. Just worried I might embarrass the family with my reaction. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, * maybe skip the video presentation. Might be better to let things cool down, *. I set the phone aside and opened another file. Guesthouse camera, 1:23 a.m. from last Tuesday. Jake stumbling around in the dark, but he wasn't alone. A guy I didn't recognize was with him, someone young and twitchy. They were handling small packages, money changing hands. Well. My cousin had been running a side business I definitely didn't know about. Another file, home office camera, 4:15 p.m. last Monday. Sarah at my computer, logged into my business banking. Her fingers flying across the keyboard with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. A lot. She transferred $3,200 to an account I didn't recognize, then cleared the browser history. My coffee had gone cold, but I couldn't stop watching. It was like discovering your life was actually a movie, and you'd been cast as the fool who didn't know he was being robbed blind. The landline rang. "Mark? It's Aunt Linda." Jake's mother sounded breathless with excitement. "I wanted to talk about the party. Jake mentioned you're doing a video presentation." "That's right." "Oh, wonderful. You know how much we all love your work. Remember that beautiful montage you made for Grandpa's 80th? Everyone cried. This one will definitely be memorable. I'm so glad you're being mature about everything. Between you and me, I think this might be the best thing for everyone. Jake's been so happy lately, and Sarah, well, a woman needs passion, doesn't she? I watched another file load on my screen. Jake and Sarah in my living room, on my couch, using my throw pillows to make themselves comfortable while they planned their future together. Absolutely, I told Aunt Linda. Everyone deserves to see what real love looks like. The next few days passed in a strange, dreamlike blur. Sarah texted occasionally, guilt-ridden messages about working through things and needing time to think. I responded with simple okays and sures, which seemed to unnerve her more than anger would have. Jake, meanwhile, had made himself completely at home. He'd taken to using the front door instead of the guest house entrance, raiding our refrigerator, and leaving his dishes in our sink. My sink. Tuesday morning, I watched through the kitchen window as he loaded my professional lighting equipment into his beat-up Honda Civic. I could have confronted him. Should have, probably. Instead, I made a note of the timestamp and added it to my growing collection. The footage was becoming an obsession. Every spare moment found me hunched over my computer, scrubbing through hours of recorded betrayal. There was so much material I'd started organizing it into categories: the affair, the theft, the drug dealing, and my personal favorite, the money trail. Sarah had been creative with that last one. Small transfers disguised as utility payments, grocery expenses that cost more than our mortgage, mysterious business lunches charged to my corporate card. When I tallied it up, they'd burned through almost $30,000 of my money funding their romance. Wednesday evening, Emma showed up unannounced with Chinese takeout and that concerned big sister expression I remembered from childhood. "You look terrible," she said, setting bags of food on my dining room table, the same table where Jake had dropped his bombshell 4 days earlier. "Thanks. Really what every man wants to hear." "I'm serious, Mark. When's the last time you showered?" "Slept." I tried to remember. "Tuesday. Monday." The days had started bleeding together. "I'm fine." "No, you're not." She grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at her. "And this video presentation idea? It's scaring people." "Which people?" "Mom called. Sarah called. Even Jake's been asking family members what you might be planning." She paused. "What are you planning?" I could have told her everything. Emma had always been the reasonable one, the family mediator. She would have listened to the whole story about the cameras and the evidence and probably would have helped me figure out the right way to handle it. Instead, I just smiled. A birthday celebration Jake will never forget. That night, my phone rang at 2 a.m. Sarah's name lit up the screen. "Mark." Her voice was small, vulnerable. The voice that used to make me drop everything to comfort her. "What's up?" I couldn't sleep. This is all so complicated. Seems pretty simple to me. You chose Jake. It's not that black and white. We have history, Mark. 7 years of marriage. That has to count for something. Through my bedroom window, I could see the guest house. The lights were on, and Jake's silhouette moved past the windows. Even now, while she was calling me, he was 20 feet away waiting for her. "You're right," I said finally. "History matters. People should see the whole story." "What does that mean?" "Nothing. Just thinking out loud." "Mark, please don't do anything crazy at the party. Jake's already nervous about your presentation. Maybe we could meet before then. Talk through everything properly." Now she wanted to talk. After months of secret meetings and stolen money and planning her exit strategy, she wanted to have a conversation. "Sure," I lied. "We'll talk soon." After I hung up, I opened my laptop one more time. The presentation was nearly finished, a carefully edited masterpiece that told the complete story of their betrayal. But Sarah's call had given me an idea for the perfect opening sequence. I scrolled back to Thanksgiving night, finding the timestamp right after Jake's announcement. There I was on camera, standing in our dining room, looking shell-shocked while my family celebrated the destruction of my marriage. But the audio had caught something the chaos of the moment had made me miss. Right after Jake's comment about showing Sarah real love, there was a whisper. Sarah, leaning close to his ear, "Do you think he knows about the money?" Perfect. The presentation now had its opening line. The week leading up to Jake's birthday party crawled by like a death march. Every day brought new humiliations that I documented with the detached precision of a war correspondent filming his own execution. Thursday morning, I came home from a client meeting to find Jake in my driveway, loading my backup camera equipment into a U-Haul truck. Not even hiding it anymore. When he saw me, he had the audacity to wave. "Hey Mark. Just grabbing some gear Sarah said you weren't using anymore." Sarah said. My own wife was now inventory manager for my cousin's theft operation. "Sure thing," I called back, making sure to smile. "Take whatever you need." His face flickered with confusion at my cheerful response, but he shrugged it off and went back to loading my $4,000 lens kit like it was garage sale junk. I added it to the presentation. The footage of him stealing was crystal clear, complete with timestamps and serial numbers visible on the equipment boxes. Friday brought an unexpected complication. Dad showed up at my door with that uncomfortable expression he'd worn when he had to explain where babies come from. "Son, we need to talk." He settled onto my couch, the same couch where Jake and Sarah had been planning their future, and cleared his throat exactly 3 times. "Dad's nervous tell since I was 5 years old. Your mother and we're concerned about this presentation idea." "It's just a birthday video, Dad." "Right, but given the circumstances." He gestured vaguely, like the circumstances were some abstract concept instead of his nephew destroying his son's marriage. "Maybe it's better to let sleeping dogs lie." "Sleeping dogs?" "You know what I mean. Sometimes when families go through rough patches, it's better to focus on healing instead of." He paused, searching for diplomatic words. "Instead of stirring up more drama." Drama. My wife's affair was drama. My cousin's theft was drama. But somehow my reaction to it was the problem. "Jake's worried you might try to embarrass him in front of the family," Dad continued. He's been through a lot with his divorce and everything. His divorce. I leaned back, studying my father's face. The one where his wife caught him cheating. Dad shifted uncomfortably. That's different. How? Look, I'm not here to take sides. Could have fooled me. Mark. His voice sharpened. I know you're hurt. But Jake and Sarah, they seem genuinely happy together. Maybe it's time to consider that this might be for the best. For the best. 7 years of marriage, $30,000 stolen, months of lies and betrayal, and it was all for the best because they seemed happy. You're right, Dad. I should focus on the positive. His relief was visible. Exactly. That's the mark I raised. After he left, I sat in my empty house and laughed until my ribs ached. The positive. They wanted me to focus on the positive aspects of being betrayed by the two people I trusted most in the world. I opened my laptop and added a new section to the presentation, the family reaction. Dad's visit had reminded me that I had footage of everyone's response to Jake's announcement. Mom's delighted clapping. Aunt Linda's gushing approval. Uncle Pete raising his beer in a toast to young love. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, *, can we please talk before the party? I'm worried about you, *. Worried about me. Not worried about the consequences of her choices, just worried that I might not go quietly into the night like a good little victim. I typed back, *, nothing to worry about. Just putting together something special for Jake's big day, *. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, what does that mean? *, you'll see. It's a surprise, *. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that makes everything look washed out and depressing. Perfect atmosphere for what I had planned. The party was set for 6 p.m. at Aunt Linda's house, the same house where Jake and I had spent countless summers as kids, back when I thought he was the brother I'd never had. The irony was so thick I could taste it. I spent the morning making final edits to my presentation, a 43-minute masterpiece I'd titled The Real Jake, a Family Portrait. It had everything, the affair footage, the theft documentation, the drug dealing evidence, and the financial records showing exactly how they'd funded their romance with my money. But the crown jewel was the audio I'd isolated from their pillow talk sessions. Hours of conversation where they discussed me like I was some kind of obstacle to work around. Sarah laughing about how oblivious I was. Jake bragging about how easy it had been to manipulate the situation. My phone rang. Aunt Linda, calling for the 3rd time this week. Mark, honey, I just wanted to confirm you're still planning to show your video tonight. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Wonderful. Jake's so excited. He keeps saying it means everything to him that you're being so supportive. Supportive. That was exactly the word I'd use too. The party was already in full swing when I arrived at Aunt Linda's house, my laptop bag slung over my shoulder like I was heading to any normal family gathering. The same yellow porch light illuminated the same welcome mat I'd stepped on 1,000 times growing up, but tonight everything felt different. Sharper. Like the whole world had been brought into focus. Through the living room window, I could see Jake holding court near the fireplace, animated and gesturing wildly while Uncle Pete and my dad laughed at whatever story he was telling. Probably something about his new downtown apartment. Our downtown apartment, funded by my drained business accounts. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Mark. Aunt Linda practically sang my name as she threw open the door. Oh honey, you look so much better than last week. I was getting worried. I'd made an effort, shower, shave, clean clothes. Amazing how much easier it was to perform basic self-care when you had something to look forward to. Just needed some time to process everything, I said, stepping into the familiar chaos of a family party. Where should I set up for the presentation? Oh, Jake cleared a space by the TV. He's been telling everyone about your surprise all week. You know how much he's always looked up to your creative work. Looked up to my work. Right up until he started stealing it. The living room fell into that awkward hush that had become standard whenever I appeared at family functions. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but voices dropped and people kept glancing over like I might spontaneously combust. Mark. Jake's voice boomed across the room with theatrical enthusiasm. He bounded over and wrapped me in a bear hug that felt like being embraced by a snake. Man, I'm so glad you came. This means everything to me, cousin. Wouldn't miss your big day, I said, patting his back. 33. That's a significant birthday. Tell me about it. Finally feel like I'm getting my life together, you know. His grin was blinding. Got the girl, got the apartment, got big plans for the future. Sarah appeared at his elbow like a summoned spirit, wearing the blue dress I bought her for our anniversary last year. She looked beautiful and terrified, her eyes darting between Jake and me like she was watching a tennis match played with hand grenades. Hi Mark, she said softly. Sarah. You look great. And I meant it. Guilt and fear had given her a kind of desperate radiance that was actually quite striking. About that talk we discussed. She started, but Jake's arm snaked around her waist, cutting her off. Tonight's for celebrating, Jake declared. We can deal with boring logistics later. Right now, I want to hear about this famous presentation everyone's been buzzing about. Just a little something I put together, I said, hefting my laptop bag. Family memories, that kind of thing. You know how I love telling stories. Mom appeared with a glass of wine for me, a peace offering wrapped in Chardonnay. That's so sweet of you, honey. After everything that's happened, well, it shows real maturity. Maturity. The family's favorite word for victims who didn't fight back. Where should I set up? I asked. Right over here, Jake said, practically bouncing with excitement as he led me to the entertainment center. Linda got one of those new smart TVs last month. Should handle whatever you've got. As I connected my laptop to the display, I could feel the room's energy shifting. People were gathering, settling into chairs and couches with the expectant buzz of an audience waiting for a show. Emma caught my eye from across the room and mouthed, "Be careful." Sarah had gone pale, her fingers wrapped so tightly around her wine glass I thought it might shatter. She knew me well enough to recognize when I was operating with purpose instead of emotion. Technical difficulties. Jake asked, peering over my shoulder as I navigated through files. Just making sure we get the best quality, I said. This deserves to be seen in high definition. The laptop screen reflected my face as I opened the presentation file, and for just a moment, I saw myself the way everyone else must have been seeing me all week, hollow-eyed and dangerous, like a man with absolutely nothing left to lose. Which, I supposed, was exactly what I was. All right everyone, Aunt Linda called out, clapping her hands together. Mark's ready with his surprise. Jake settled into the place of honor on the couch, Sarah pressed against his side, both of them looking up at the big screen with very different expressions. Him with anticipation, her with the kind of dread usually reserved for natural disasters. I clicked play and stepped back to watch my masterpiece begin. The opening sequence hit like a sledgehammer. My own voice filled Aunt Linda's living room, crystal clear through her new sound system. When did this start? The timestamp in the corner read, November 23rd, 8:47 p.m., Thanksgiving dinner, less than a week ago, though it felt like a lifetime. On screen, past me stood frozen in our dining room while Jake's arm snaked around Sarah's waist. The camera angle was perfect, catching every micro-expression as Jake delivered his speech about real love and showing Sarah what passion looks like. But then came the part no one had heard clearly in the chaos of that moment. I'd isolated the audio, cleaned it up, amplified it. Sarah's whispered question to Jake, do you think he knows about the money? The room went dead silent. Sarah made a small choking sound. Jake's face drained of color so fast I thought he might faint, but the video kept rolling. Now it was showing them in my kitchen 3 weeks earlier, Sarah melting into Jake's arms while he groped her against my counter, wearing my Harvard t-shirt like some kind of trophy. Mark. Dad's voice cut through the audio. What is this? Family memories, I said simply, not taking my eyes off the screen. Like Mom said, it's important to focus on the positive. The kitchen footage faded into a split-screen comparison, Jake loading my camera equipment into his car on one side, the purchase receipts with serial numbers on the other. Everything matched perfectly. $4,000 worth of gear, labeled as gifts from Cousin Mark, in his text messages to buyers. This is a joke, right? Uncle Pete laughed nervously. Some kind of movie thing you made? But Jake wasn't laughing. He'd gone rigid on the couch, staring at the screen like it was showing his own execution. Which, in a way, it was. The video transitioned to night vision footage from the guest house. Jake and his twitchy friend exchanging small packages and cash, the timestamp showing it had happened just 3 days ago. The audio caught every word of their conversation about product quality and regular customers. Oh my god, Aunt Linda whispered. Jake, what is that? It's not what it looks like, Jake stammered, finally finding his voice. Mark's obviously edited this, made it seem. His protest died as the screen filled with Sarah at my computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she transferred another chunk of my money to their shared account. The banking interface was clearly visible, along with the amounts, $3,200, then $1,800, then $2,500. All within the past month. That's enough, Sarah said, standing abruptly. Her wine glass hit the coffee table with a sharp clink. Turn it off. We're just getting to the good part, I said, gesturing to the screen as it shifted to audio waveforms over a black background. This next section is my personal favorite. I call it Pillow Talk. Jake's voice emerged from the speakers, tinny but unmistakable, so fucking oblivious. We could probably rob him blind and he'd thank us for it. Sarah's laughter followed, bright and cruel, he's always been too trusting. Remember when we were dating? I used to joke that he'd believe anything if you said it sweetly enough. Sarah, Mom breathed, her hand pressed to her chest like she was having heart palpitations. More wine. Jake's recorded voice continued. We should celebrate. Your husband just paid for our weekend in Cabo without even knowing it. The real time Jake lunged for my laptop, but I positioned myself strategically. He'd have to go through me to reach it, and something in my expression made him think better of the attempt. How long? Emma asked quietly. How long have you known? About the affair. Couple of months. About everything else. I gestured to the screen, where new footage was loading. Well, I'm learning right along with the rest of you. The next clip made Aunt Linda gasp out loud. Jake in my home office, rifling through my filing cabinets and photographing documents with his phone. Tax returns, client contracts, bank statements, everything someone would need to steal an identity or tank a business. Planning something special with those, cousin. The silence stretched like a guitar string about to snap. Jake's mouth opened and closed soundlessly while the video continued its merciless parade of evidence. On screen now, him copying my client contact list onto a flash drive, the timestamp showing it happened just last Tuesday while I was at a doctor's appointment. Jesus Christ, Jake, Dad whispered. What were you planning to do with that? I can explain. Actually, I interrupted, pausing the video with deliberate slowness. Let's hear from Sarah first. She's been awfully quiet. All eyes turned to her. She stood frozen by the couch, her face cycling through emotions like a broken slot machine. Fear, anger, desperation, and something else, calculation. Even now, even caught red-handed, she was looking for an angle. This is illegal, she said finally, her voice gaining strength. Recording people without consent. You can't use any of this in court, Mark. You know that. A few family members nodded, grasping for any lifeline that might make this nightmare make sense. But Emma, my brilliant lawyer sister Emma, shook her head slowly. Actually, Emma said, her professional voice cutting through the emotional chaos, he can. It's his house, his security system. Single-party consent state. Every bit of this is admissible. The color drained from Sarah's face again. Emma, you can't seriously be taking his side. I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm stating legal facts. Emma's tone could have frozen fire. And the facts are that we just watched you steal $30,000 in him, she pointed at Jake, deal drugs from Mark's property. It wasn't drugs, Jake protested weakly. It was just supplements. Workout stuff. I hit play again. The audio from his midnight transaction filled the room. This is the good shit, man. Pure MDMA, none of that synthetic garbage. Uncle Pete stood up so fast his beer bottle toppled over. That's it. I'm calling the police. Wait, Aunt Linda grabbed his arm, tears streaming down her cheeks. Please, just, wait. Jake, tell me this isn't real. Tell me Mark somehow faked all of this. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. 27 years of motherhood crumbling in real time as she watched her son revealed as a thief and a drug dealer. Almost. It's all out of context, Jake said desperately. Mark's been obsessed with me ever since I moved in. This is revenge because Sarah chose someone better. Better? The word came out as a growl. You think stealing from me makes you better? I never stole. The cameras don't lie, cousin. I gestured to the frozen screen, where his image was captured mid-theft, my expensive lens in his hands. But apparently everyone else in this family does. That hit home. I could see it in their faces, the uncomfortable recognition that they'd all been so eager to accept Jake's version of events, so quick to pressure me into playing the gracious loser. There's more, I said quietly, and the room somehow got even more tense. The presentation's only half over. Sarah's composure finally cracked completely. Stop, she said, then louder, stop. Please, Mark, just, stop. Now you want me to stop. I felt that dangerous calm settling over me again. Where was this concern when you were discussing which of my clients you wanted to steal? Or when you were laughing about how stupid I was? I never said you were stupid. Audio doesn't lie either. I clicked to another file. Sarah's voice filled the room. Mark's such a Boy Scout. He actually believes Jake's sob story about needing help. It's almost sad how naive he is. Mom stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood. I need some air. She headed for the back door, Dad trailing behind her like a lost puppy. That seemed to break the spell. People started moving, talking in urgent whispers, the party atmosphere completely evaporated. But nobody left. They were all too transfixed by the slow-motion car crash playing out on Aunt Linda's big screen. Please, Sarah tried again, her voice breaking. We can fix this. Jake and I will pay you back. Every penny. And we'll move away, start fresh somewhere else. You'll never have to see us again. Fix this. I looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in months. Sarah, you didn't accidentally trip and fall onto my cousin's dick. You planned this. Both of you planned this. Jake finally found his backbone, or at least his anger. You know what? Fuck this. You want to play victim? Fine. But Sarah was miserable with you for years, Mark. Years. I didn't steal her, I rescued her. With my money. Money you wouldn't have without her. Who do you think answered your calls when you were too busy with clients? Who managed your schedule? Sarah built your business as much as you did. That's funny, I said, reaching for my laptop. Because I have footage of you two discussing how to destroy that same business. Should we watch that next? The threat hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Jake's face went through a series of expressions, defiance melting into panic as he realized I wasn't bluffing about having more footage. You're insane, he said, but his voice cracked on the words. This is harassment. Actually, Emma interjected, pulling out her phone, this is evidence of multiple felonies. Mark, I need copies of everything. Tonight. Emma, please, Sarah stepped toward my sister, desperation making her voice shrill. We're family. Can't we handle this privately? Family? Emma's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. You want to talk about family while standing next to $30,000 in theft evidence? I was reaching for my laptop to queue up the next segment when my phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number, asterisk nice show. Hope you're ready for the consequences, asterisk. Then another, check your email. And another, some secrets go both ways, cousin. My blood went cold. Jake was watching me read the messages, and despite everything crumbling around him, he was smiling again. That same smug expression from Thanksgiving dinner. Something wrong, Mark? He asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. I opened my email with trembling fingers. The message had no subject line, just a video attachment and a single sentence. Press play if you want everyone to see what really happened to Dad's medication. Dad's medication. My father had been on serious pain management after his back surgery 2 years ago. Pills that had gone missing from their house during a family barbecue. Pills that Dad had been too embarrassed to report stolen, instead telling his doctor he'd accidentally flushed them. I'd been at that barbecue. I'd been in their medicine cabinet, looking for aspirin after too much wine and sun. You look pale, buddy, Jake said, his confidence returning as he watched my face. Maybe we should take a break from story time. The room was watching our exchange like a tennis match. Everyone could sense the shift in dynamic, but they didn't understand it yet. Sarah was looking between us with growing confusion. What medication? She asked. Jake ignored her, keeping his eyes locked on mine. See, the thing about security cameras, Mark, is they're not the only way to record things. Phones work pretty well too. Especially when someone's acting suspicious at family gatherings. My mouth had gone completely dry. I was looking for aspirin. Sure you were. Just like you were looking for aspirin when you pocketed that bottle of OxyContin. Good thing I happened to be filming Dad's speech about his recovery, right? Caught some very interesting background activity. Emma stepped closer to me. Mark? What's he talking about? Nothing, I said quickly, but Jake was already pulling out his phone. Want to show your own video to the family? Jake asked. Or should I show mine? The silence stretched between us like a bridge made of razor wire. Around us, the family waited, sensing blood in the water but not sure whose blood it was. 2 years ago, Jake announced to the room, someone stole Dad's pain medication. Remember how upset he was? How he had to go through withdrawal because he was too ashamed to tell the doctor what really happened. Jake, Aunt Linda warned, but he was on a roll now. Turns out it wasn't some random break-in like we all assumed. It was family. Someone with access, someone trusted. He held up his phone. Someone who thought nobody was watching. Sarah was staring at me with dawning horror. Mark. Tell me he's lying. But I couldn't tell her that. Because Jake wasn't lying. And somewhere on his phone was proof that would destroy me just as thoroughly as my presentation was destroying him. The standoff was complete. Two cousins, each holding loaded weapons aimed at the other's life. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Everyone's eyes darted between Jake's phone and my laptop, two digital weapons in a standoff that would leave multiple casualties regardless of who fired first. Well? Sarah's voice cut through the silence. Are you going to answer me? I looked at my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, and saw something I'd never seen before. Not just disappointment or anger, but genuine disgust. Like she was seeing me for the first time and didn't like what she found. It's complicated, I said finally. No, it's really not. Jake's thumb hovered over his phone screen. It's actually pretty simple. Mark stole medication from his own father. While Dad was giving a speech about overcoming his dependency issues. Emma moved closer to me, her lawyer instincts kicking in. Don't say another word without. Oh, he doesn't need to say anything, Jake interrupted. The video speaks for itself. Crystal clear footage of Mark pocketing that bottle. Though I have to ask, cousin, was it for personal use, or were you planning to sell them? Because those pills were worth quite a bit on the street. The accusation hit like a physical blow. I wasn't going to sell them. So you admit you took them? The words hung in the air like a confession at a tribunal. Around us, family members shifted uncomfortably, their allegiances recalculating in real time. Mom had come back inside at some point and was now gripping Dad's arm like she was afraid he might collapse. Mark, Dad's voice was barely a whisper. Those pills. I went through hell getting off them. The withdrawal, the shame of telling Dr. Peterson I'd lost them. I know, I said, my own voice cracking. I'm sorry. I was going to put them back. When? Jake pressed. Before or after you used them all? The truth was more complicated than either of those options, but how do you explain the mindset of someone whose chronic insomnia had driven them to desperate measures? How do you tell your family that you stole medication not to get high, but just to sleep through one night without lying awake replaying every failure in your life? I was having trouble sleeping, I said lamely. So were a lot of people, Jake shot back. Most of them don't steal from their fathers. Sarah was backing away from me now, her hand pressed to her mouth. Oh my God. Mark, how could you? Your own father. The irony would have been hilarious if it weren't so devastating. My cheating, stealing wife was looking at me like I was the monster in this scenario. That's rich, coming from someone who embezzled $30,000, I snapped. That's different. How is it different? Because I was planning to pay it back. With what money? Jake's drug profits. The accusation sparked something dangerous in Jake's eyes. You want to keep playing this game, cousin? Because I've got 2 years worth of footage from family gatherings. 2 years of watching you act shifty around medicine cabinets, liquor cabinets, anywhere someone might keep something you wanted. That wasn't true, but the seed of doubt was already planted. I could see it in their faces. Suddenly every awkward moment, every time I'd excuse myself during family parties, was being recontextualized as potential evidence of addiction or theft. You're lying, I said, but even I could hear how weak it sounded. Am I? Want me to show them the video from Christmas last year? You in Uncle Pete's bathroom, going through his prescription bottles. I had been looking for antacids. Pete had mentioned having some prescription strength stuff for his ulcers, and I'd been dealing with stress-related stomach issues for months. But explaining that now would sound like another desperate excuse. This is insane, Emma interjected. You're both. Both what? Jake turned on her. Both criminals. Because that's what your brother is, Emma. A thief who stole from his own family. The presentation was still paused on my laptop screen, frozen on footage of Jake with my stolen camera equipment. 2 crimes, 2 perpetrators, 2 families about to be torn apart by the fallout. And neither of us was backing down. The weight of 24 eyes staring at me was crushing. The room had gone so quiet I could hear the grandfather clock in Aunt Linda's hallway ticking away the seconds of my social execution. Jake's finger still hovered over his phone screen like an executioner's axe, ready to drop the final blow that would brand me as the family addict who stole from his own father. But something Emma had said earlier was echoing in my head, 2 years worth of footage from family gatherings. 2 years. That was a long time to be secretly recording family events. A long time to be building blackmail material on relatives who trusted you. Jake, I said slowly, an idea forming. Show them all the videos. His confident smirk flickered. What? You said you have 2 years of footage from family gatherings. That's a lot of material. I stepped toward him, watching his expression shift from triumph to uncertainty. Show everyone everything you've been recording. Let the family see exactly how long you've been spying on them. The room's energy changed instantly. Suddenly Jake wasn't the righteous whistleblower exposing family crimes, he was someone who'd been secretly filming relatives at private gatherings for years. That's not. I wasn't spying. Then what would you call it? Emma's lawyer voice cut through his protests. Covert surveillance of family members without consent. For 2 years. Uncle Pete stood up slowly, his face darkening. You've been recording us. All of us. For 2 years. Only when Mark was acting suspicious. How did you know when Mark was acting suspicious unless you were filming constantly? Emma pressed. Jake, do you have footage of all our family gatherings on your phone? The trap was closing around him. I could see Jake's mind racing, trying to find an explanation that didn't make him sound like a paranoid sociopath who'd been building surveillance files on his own relatives. It's not like that, he said desperately. I was just protecting the family. From Mark looking for antacids. Dad's voice was gaining strength, the initial shock of my confession being replaced by anger at Jake's methods. You've been secretly filming my son for 2 years because you thought he might steal aspirin. It wasn't just aspirin. Show them the Christmas video then, I interrupted. The one where I was supposedly going through Uncle Pete's prescription bottles. Show everyone exactly what criminal behavior looks like. Jake's hand tightened on his phone. He was trapped and he knew it. If he showed the video, it would reveal that I'd been looking through Pete's medicine cabinet for exactly the innocent reason I'd claimed. But refusing to show it would make him look like he was lying about having evidence. I don't have to prove anything to you, Jake said, but his voice lacked conviction. Actually, Aunt Linda said quietly, I think you do. Her tear-stained face had hardened into something I'd never seen before. Jake, if you've been recording our family for 2 years without telling anyone. Mom, you don't understand. Then help me understand. Show me these videos. All of them. The demand came from his own mother, and the betrayal in her voice was devastating. Jake looked around the room desperately, searching for an ally, but found only suspicious faces staring back at him. I was protecting you, he said weakly. He's been having problems for years. The drinking, the pills, staying up all night. The drinking. Sarah's voice was sharp. What drinking? Jake realized his mistake immediately. He'd just accused me of having alcohol problems in front of my wife, who lived with me every day and would know better than anyone whether that was true. He drinks wine with dinner sometimes. Everyone drinks wine with dinner sometimes, Mom snapped. That's not alcoholism, Jake. That's being an adult. The momentum had completely shifted. Jake's credibility was evaporating as quickly as his secret recordings were being exposed as a creepy invasion of privacy rather than justified surveillance. But I knew he still had that one video. The real one, showing me taking Dad's medication. And desperate people do desperate things. Jake's face cycled through emotions like a broken traffic light, red with anger, yellow with uncertainty, then back to red as he made his decision. The kind of decision desperate people make when their backs are against the wall. Fine, he said, his voice taking on that reckless edge I remembered from when we were kids and he was about to do something spectacularly stupid. You want to see everything? Let's see everything. He started swiping through his phone with manic energy, and I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't going according to plan anymore. Here's Mark at Easter, rifling through Mom's purse while she was in the garden. He held up the phone, showing grainy footage of me clearly looking for something. And here's Thanksgiving 2 years ago, going through the coat closet. Each video clip hit like a slap. Context stripped away, they looked damning as hell. Me searching through personal belongings, looking furtive and guilty even though I'd been hunting for car keys and phone chargers and other innocent things. Jake, stop this, Aunt Linda pleaded, but he was beyond listening now. Oh, and this is my personal favorite. His thumb stabbed at the screen. Christmas morning last year. Watch what Mark does when everyone's distracted with presents. The video showed me slipping away from the gift exchange, heading toward the back of the house. On the small phone screen, it looked secretive. Predatory, even. I was using the bathroom, I said, but it sounded weak even to my own ears. For 20 minutes. Really? Jake's laugh was sharp and ugly. Because I timed it, cousin. 20 minutes in the back hallway, going through cabinets. Emma stepped closer to me, and I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. Mark, what were you really doing? The truth was embarrassing but innocent. I'd been dealing with stress-related digestive issues and had spent most of that time in Pete's bathroom, then searched his medicine cabinet for something stronger than Tums. But explaining that now, with everyone staring at me like I was a common criminal, felt impossible. This is ridiculous, Sarah said, and for a moment I thought she was defending me. Then she continued, you're both liars. Both of you have been lying to this family for years. She was right, and that truth hit harder than any of Jake's accusations. We were both liars. Both criminals, in our own ways. The only difference was the scale and the victims. At least I was trying to protect people, Jake shot back. Mark's the one with the real problems. The sleepless nights, the mood swings, the what? Dad interrupted, his voice dangerous. What else aren't you telling us, Jake? And that's when Jake made his final, catastrophic mistake. Ask him about his client meetings, Jake said triumphantly. Ask him where he really goes during those late-night business calls. The room went dead silent. Even Sarah was staring at Jake with confusion. What are you talking about? I asked. Jake's grin was vicious. I followed you last month. Tracked your car to that little dive bar on 5th Street. Watched you sit there for 3 hours, drinking alone, making phone calls to numbers that don't exist. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. But this time, Jake had overplayed his hand. Because I knew exactly which night he was talking about. That dive bar on 5th Street, I said slowly. The one that's been closed for renovations since September. Jake's face flickered. What? The Rusty Anchor. Closed for 6 months. They're gutting the whole interior. I looked around the room at my family's confused faces. Which means either Jake is lying about following me there, or... The realization hit everyone simultaneously. Emma voiced it first. Or you've been stalking Mark for months, taking pictures of empty buildings, and making up stories about what you think you saw. Jake's phone suddenly seemed very heavy in his hands. The silence that followed Emma's realization was deafening. Jake stood there clutching his phone like it was a life preserver on a sinking ship, his face cycling through expressions so quickly it was almost cartoonish. The cocky predator had become cornered prey in the span of 30 seconds. Jake, Aunt Linda's voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the tension like a blade. Tell me you haven't been following Mark around town. I wasn't following, I was just, Jake's usual silver tongue seemed to have deserted him entirely. Sometimes I happen to be driving the same direction. The Rusty Anchor is 15 miles from your usual route to anywhere, Uncle Pete interjected, his cop instincts finally kicking in. I should know, I used to patrol that area. There's no reason for you to happen to be there unless you were deliberately tracking someone. The family was turning against him now, and I could see the exact moment Jake realized it. His eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal looking for an escape route, but there wasn't one. Every face that had been sympathetic to his cause 5 minutes ago was now regarding him with suspicion or outright disgust. But cornered animals are dangerous, and Jake had always been unpredictable when backed into a corner. You know what? He said, his voice taking on that reckless edge again. Fine. You want the truth. I have been keeping tabs on Mark. Because someone needed to. Because all of you were too blind to see what was happening right under your noses. He started pacing now, gesticulating wildly with his phone. Mark's been spiraling for months. The insomnia, the paranoia, installing all those security cameras because he's convinced someone's out to get him. Does that sound normal to any of you? Sarah shifted uncomfortably. She knew about the sleepless nights, the 3 a.m. sessions where I'd pace the house checking locks and windows. What she didn't know was that my paranoia had been completely justified. And the pills, Jake continued, gaining momentum. You think Dad's OxyContin was the only medication that went missing from family gatherings? Ask Aunt Carol about her anxiety medication from the 4th of July. Ask Mom about her sleep aids from her birthday party. My blood went cold. Because he was right about Carol's pills, I had taken 2 of her Xanax during a particularly bad anxiety spiral at the family barbecue. And Linda's sleep aids had helped me through a brutal week of insomnia after a major client presentation went sideways. That's enough, Emma said sharply, but Jake was on a roll now. He's been self-medicating for years, and none of you wanted to see it because perfect Mark couldn't possibly have problems. Jake's laugh was bitter. Well, guess what? Your golden boy has been systematically stealing medication from his own family to feed his dependency issues. The accusation landed like a physical blow because there was just enough truth in it to sting. Not dependency in the way Jake was implying, but I had been taking pills that weren't prescribed to me. Small amounts, desperate attempts to manage stress and insomnia that I was too proud to seek proper help for. Is that true? Mom asked quietly, her voice heavy with disappointment that hurt worse than any anger could have. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text. Sarah's number, *, we need to talk. Privately. Now, *. I looked up to find her staring at me intently, her expression unreadable. She'd been quiet during Jake's latest revelation, but I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. Sarah had always been good at reading between the lines, at seeing patterns others missed. Another text, *, there's something you need to know about Jake's recordings. Something he didn't mention, *. My mouth went dry. What could Jake possibly have left out of his catalog of my supposed crimes? I looked at Sarah's text messages, then back at the chaos unfolding in Aunt Linda's living room. Jake was still pacing, his voice getting higher and more frantic as he detailed my supposed prescription drug theft from various family members. Half the room was staring at me with disappointment, the other half was watching Jake with growing alarm. Sarah, I said quietly, holding up my phone. What are you talking about? She glanced around the room nervously, then stepped closer. Not here. Too many people. Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of everyone, Jake declared, apparently overhearing. No more secrets, right Mark? Isn't that what your little presentation was about? But Sarah was shaking her head, her face pale. Jake, you need to stop talking. Right now. Why? Because you're finally seeing what your precious husband really is? Jake's grin was manic now. Because you're realizing you chose the right man after all. No, Sarah said slowly, because you just confessed to stalking Mark, and I know exactly why you were really following him. The room went quiet again. Jake's pacing stopped abruptly. What are you talking about? He asked, but his voice had lost its confident edge. Sarah pulled out her own phone, scrolling through something with shaking fingers. 3 weeks ago, you asked me to get copies of Mark's client contracts. Said you needed to know his schedule for planning surprises. So I didn't give them to you because it felt wrong. But you got them anyway, didn't you? She held up her phone, showing what looked like a screenshot of my calendar. You've been tracking his actual business meetings, Jake. Not following him to bars that don't exist. Jake's face went sheet white. That's not. You knew exactly when Mark would be at real client meetings because you copied his schedule from his computer. The nights you claimed he was drinking alone. He was working. The suspicious behavior you've been documenting. It was you creating fake evidence to support your lies. Emma stepped forward, her prosecutor instincts fully activated. Jake, did you fabricate evidence to make Mark look like he has substance abuse problems? I didn't fabricate anything. Then show us the metadata on those videos, Emma demanded. Show us the timestamps, the location data. If you really caught Mark doing these things, the phone records will prove when and where you filmed them. Jake's grip tightened on his phone. I don't have to prove anything to you people. Actually, you do, Uncle Pete said, his voice carrying the authority of 30 years in law enforcement. Jake, if you've been creating false evidence against a family member, that's not just morally wrong, it's criminal. Harassment, stalking, potentially even fraud if you were planning to use it somehow. The pieces were falling into place now, and I could see the bigger picture forming. The client list, I said suddenly. You weren't just tracking my schedule. You were planning to steal my clients. Sarah nodded miserably. He kept asking me about your biggest accounts, your contracts, how much they paid you. I thought he was just curious about the business, but he was conducting market research, I finished. Building a case file to destroy my reputation while simultaneously stealing my client base. Jake's silence was answer enough. The room was staring at him with undisguised horror now, realizing the scope of his manipulation. This wasn't just about an affair anymore, it was about a calculated campaign to destroy my life and steal everything I built. Jesus, Jake, Dad whispered. What were you planning to do with all this? Jake's phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced at it, and whatever he saw there made his face go completely gray. Who's texting you? Aunt Linda asked. Nobody, Jake said quickly, but his hands were shaking now. It's nothing. My own phone buzzed. Sarah again, check your email. Now, I opened my email with trembling fingers while Jake frantically tried to silence his phone. The message was from an address I didn't recognize, but the subject line made my blood freeze. Jake's insurance policy, open immediately. The email contained a single video file and a message, he's been blackmailing half the family. This is just the beginning. A friend. Mark, what is it? Emma asked, noticing my expression. Before I could answer, Jake's phone rang. The ringtone echoed through the silent room, and when he tried to decline the call, Uncle Pete grabbed his wrist. "Answer it," Pete commanded in his cop voice. On speaker. Jake's face had gone completely ashen. With shaking fingers, he accepted the call and hit the speaker button. "Jake." The voice was female, middle-aged, and absolutely furious. "I just got a very interesting email with some video footage. Want to explain why you have recordings of me in my own bedroom?" Aunt Linda gasped. "Who is this?" "This is Carol," the voice replied. "Your brother's wife. And apparently the victim of your son's perverted little surveillance operation." The room exploded into chaos. Multiple family members started talking at once, but Carol's voice cut through the noise. "Jake's been secretly recording all of us for years. Not just at family gatherings, he somehow got cameras into our houses." "That's impossible," Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Carol's bitter laugh came through the speaker. "Jake's been doing handyman work for half the family over the past 2 years. How many of you gave him keys to your houses for projects? How many times was he alone in your bedrooms, your bathrooms, your private spaces?" My mind raced back through the past year. Jake had installed new smoke detectors at Mom and Dad's house last spring. He'd fixed Aunt Linda's bathroom fan over the summer. He'd even done some electrical work in Emma's home office while she was on vacation. "Jake," Aunt Linda's voice was barely a whisper. "Tell me you didn't put cameras in people's homes." Jake's silence was deafening. Emma pulled out her phone and started dialing. "I'm calling the police." "Wait." Jake finally found his voice. "It's not what you think. I wasn't recording bedrooms or bathrooms. Just common areas. For security. To protect everyone." "From what?" Dad's voice was dangerously quiet. "From him." Jake pointed at me desperately. "Mark's been casing everyone's houses during family visits. I was trying to catch him in the act before he robbed you all blind." But even as he said it, I could see that nobody was buying it anymore. The web of lies was too complex, too elaborate. This wasn't about protecting anyone, this was about control. My phone buzzed with another email. This one contained what looked like financial records. Jake's bank statements, showing regular deposits from multiple sources. Names I recognized, family members who'd paid him for various home improvement projects over the years. But there were other deposits too. Larger amounts from addresses that made my stomach turn. Jake hadn't just been blackmailing family members with his secret recordings. "Sarah," I said quietly, "how much did Jake know about my business accounts before you gave him access?" Her face crumpled. "Everything. I gave him everything 3 months ago." The final piece clicked into place. Jake hadn't just been planning to steal my clients, he'd been systematically gathering blackmail material on the entire family while draining my accounts to fund the operation. And now someone else had discovered his recordings. Someone who was sending them to his victims. Someone who wanted Jake to burn just as much as I did. Jake's phone rang again, the sound cutting through the stunned silence like a fire alarm. This time the caller ID showed Detective Morrison, City Police. "Answer it," Uncle Pete ordered, his cop instincts taking complete control. "Now." Jake's hand trembled as he accepted the call on speaker. "Hello. Mr. Jake Patterson. This is Detective Morrison with the Cybercrime Unit. We need you to come to the station immediately for questioning regarding multiple reports of illegal surveillance and extortion." The room went dead silent. Jake looked like he was going to be sick. What reports?" "We've received evidence packages from 17 different victims over the past hour, Mr. Patterson. Including federal crimes involving interstate transmission of illegally obtained recordings. You have the right to remain silent." As the detective continued reading Miranda rights over the phone, I watched my cousin's entire world collapse. The cocky predator who destroyed my marriage while planning to steal my business was now facing federal charges. "Jake," Aunt Linda whispered, tears streaming down her face. "What have you done?" But Jake wasn't listening anymore. He was staring at his phone in horror as text after text poured in, apparently from victims who just received their own evidence packages. Family members, neighbors, former clients. The scope of his surveillance operation was staggering. "Someone's been sitting on this information," Emma said, her legal mind working. Waiting for the right moment to release everything at once. I had a suspicion about who that someone might be, but it didn't matter now. What mattered was watching Jake's house of cards finally collapse completely. "Mark," Sarah said suddenly, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea he was, all of this. The cameras in people's homes, the blackmail." She looked around the room at the devastated faces of our family. "I thought I was leaving you for someone better, but I was just another victim in his scheme." "We all were," Dad said quietly, putting his arm around Mom's shoulders. "He played us against each other while robbing us blind." Jake finally looked up from his phone, his face a mask of desperate rage. "This is all your fault, Mark. If you hadn't been so paranoid with your security cameras, if you'd just let Sarah go quietly. If I'd just let you destroy my life without fighting back." I shook my head. "No, cousin. You made your choices. Every camera you planted, every lie you told, every dollar you stole, those were your decisions." Emma ended her call with the police. "They're sending units to multiple addresses to collect evidence. Jake, you need a lawyer. A really good one." As if summoned by her words, the sound of sirens began growing louder outside. "I need to say something," Sarah announced to the room. "To everyone." She took a shaky breath. "I'm filing for divorce, and I'm going to testify against Jake in whatever cases they bring. What we did to Mark was wrong, but what Jake did to all of you." She gestured helplessly. "There's no excuse for any of it." The police arrived as Jake was led away in handcuffs, his phone seized as evidence. Aunt Linda collapsed into Uncle Pete's arms, sobbing. The family scattered to call lawyers, check their own homes for hidden cameras, and begin the long process of rebuilding trust that Jake had systematically destroyed. As the chaos died down, I found myself standing alone in the driveway with my laptop bag, watching the police cars disappear into the night. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk sometimes the best revenge is just letting someone hang themselves with their own rope. Enjoy your fresh start. A friend asterisk. I deleted the message and headed home to my empty house, where I had some serious thinking to do about rebuilding my life from the ground up. But for the first time in months, I wasn't worried about who might be watching.